exciting to be able to do this, and people can find out what's going on at URI. And I know it's been a very, very trying summer for all of us with the pandemic. So my first question will go to President Dooley. And parents all over the country want to know, will my student be safe when they return to campus? Can you please share with us URI's plans?
I can share with you URI's plans as they exist today. Because one of the things that we've learned, and I think probably everybody who's participating in this video conference today knows, is that what it seems to be true today may be different tomorrow as it relates to COVID-19 and the pandemic. It has been a continuous saga for all of us in dealing with the way that this pandemic has developed, spread, and continues to be so problematic to so many parts of our country. But here's what I can tell you about what URI is planning. First of all, we began planning many months ago. As soon as we pivoted away from in-person instruction in the spring and to online, we've been thinking about the start of the fall semester ever since. And we've been doing more than thinking. We've been investing literally millions of dollars in preparing the campus for this fall. And that goes from everything to putting state-of-the-art conferencing and video technology into all of our classrooms, developing new software. The faculty have been working night and day developing their courses to teach in an online environment or a blended environment that's a mixture of in-person and online. All the way down to actually creating hundreds more parking spaces for students who will have to commute to campus this fall, as opposed to living on the campus. So it has been an incredibly hectic time since the spring with some big successes. We had the largest summer session URI has ever had, entirely online, and had very, very strong student success in that summer session. So we're really encouraged by what the faculty have been able to achieve in taking advanced technology to enhance online and in-person instruction. Right now, we're planning on welcoming about 4,500 students back to campus in our residence halls. We're looking forward to teaching a rich mixture of online, blended, and in-person courses using advanced technology, as I said. Kathy and her incredible team in student affairs have put together a spectacular orientation program working with our student orientation leaders and tour guides. They have put together a whole panoply of events and things to do for the fall to engage students, even while maintaining adequate social distancing, wearing masks, and following all the other guidelines given to us by the Department of Health and the CDC. So we feel we're as prepared as we can be. We have housing and dining all ready to go with everything from outdoor dining under tents for students to be able to sit and have a meal together occasionally in an appropriate environment, to grab and go, pick up and take it back to your room or wherever you would like. We've created dozens of new classrooms from every available space, including spaces in the memorial unions, and many new places for students to study. Because when you're separated by 6 feet or more and wearing your mask, we think that is a safe way to do it. But obviously, places like the 24/7 study space in the library can hold now many fewer people than it once did, right, under normal conditions. So there's where we are, and we're pretty pleased with how much the community of faculty, staff, and our students who've been working with us have come together to put these plans in place. And we're hopeful and remain optimistic that the plan will be sufficient and to keep everybody safe. But we acknowledge, I mean, let's just be completely honest with one another. The virus is not going to be prevented from coming on campus. People will contract the virus. Some people will get sick. And we've got plans in places, hundreds of rooms set aside for students to isolate and quarantine who either have the virus or are just exposed to someone who has the virus. We have rigorous contact tracing protocols in place, and we have really significant testing mechanisms in place. We will test, for example, all of our students, whether on or off campus, who are coming to URI from hotspots across the country. We're very fortunate in the vast majority of our students, and this is one of the reasons we can have the guarded optimism that we do, are coming from places where the virus has been really kept largely under control recently. The Northeast, New England, those states have done much better than many other parts of the country, and that's where the majority of our students are coming. So we're in a better situation than folks in North Carolina or folks in Indiana and elsewhere that have had problems with reopening. And we hope that that will help us as we go forward. So that's where we stand.
What a major undertaking. I mean, it's mind-boggling, the things that you have to think of, and just the involvement of so many people at URI, which is just vitally important. But Kathy, when we talk about all these students coming in, how do you feed them? How do you take care of them?
That's a really good question. And we all know Maslow's hierarchy, food and shelter. So as President Dooley shared, we certainly have decreased the density on campus. So we typically will house 6,200. Now we're coming in around 4,500. And that was intentional on our part, that we wanted to decrease that density. Some of you remember our residence halls, and certainly it's a good opportunity for us to kind of space some people out in some of those types. So most of our residence halls are going to be singles. So that also reduces the number of people on campus who might be eating. So with that population, not a lot of our off-campus students typically get a meal plan. So we plan on feeding on any given day. Last year, pre-pandemic, we would do about 9,000 people a day of our total student population. So as President Dooley said, we've got tents. So the tents are going up on Friday. We're going to have a lot of amazing outdoor dining. You know, Rhode Island is beautiful, and we're going to be beautiful, we know, into October. It gives us a lot of that opportunity. All of our chefs and our cooks and our amazing team in dining services, not only this past spring did they help serve and make food for the senior centers across Rhode Island. So when we pivoted in March, our dining team has been feeding senior centers and all, just our commitment to the state. They moved right into that, to the best grab and go menu I think we could come up with. So they've made different chicken sandwiches. I keep having to taste test things. I know that's a rough part of my job. So it's a good thing I also have campus recreation in my area, so we can work out and take care of ourselves. But I think some of this, we do salads and working with the farm, so really good healthy stuff can be grab and go. And actually, we've had so many changes on campus. One of our most popular eating establishments last year was sushi. We were doing over 20,000 rolls of sushi a week. We have a sushi place right now in the restaurant. That's perfect grab and go. So we're really excited. Our dining team's excited to take on this challenge and really keep our students on path to on-time graduation in a healthy way. But dining's just one of those pieces. We also are going to have a new brick oven pizza restaurant on campus this year, and it'll be reservations on the new Rhode Island URI app that you can get in the App Store. We encourage every one of you to download it. It's called Rhody Connect. You can see our day-to-day menus. You can, if you're nearby, I encourage you, order a takeout new brick oven pizza. Come by, pick it up. It's over in Hope Dining Hall, and that's a reservation restaurant right on campus that we've created this summer. So our team's up to the challenge. It takes the entire community, as you know. Our students are amazing. Our faculty and staff are amazing, and this has been an exciting challenge, and food's just a part of it.
Fantastic. And I know everyone has now become used to going on apps and ordering takeout and pickup. So this is great. This is great for the students. Now we're going to switch gears just a little bit. Well, I'm sure we're going to come back to some more of the planning involved with the pandemic. But President Dooley, I know that one of your goals, and I've heard you talk about this too from very early on, was that you wanted to establish an independent board of trustees. And earlier this year, university made a very important announcement about its new governance body. So I think it's very important, and I'd like for you to update us on the progress of that.
Well, thank you very much for the question, Karen. You're right. It was a goal I had shortly after I arrived at the University of Rhode Island, mainly because our governance processes went through a period of a lot of change. You know, when I was hired, we were hired under the auspices of the Board of Governors for Higher Education, led by Judge Frank Caprio. It was a group that had a lot of experience, had worked with URI and the other institutions very closely, were very familiar with political processes in Rhode Island, and they are in fact one of the most effective boards of education in the entire country. It was one of the attractive things about coming to URI. But then we went through a protracted period of just constant turmoil and change in the board, which hampered the university significantly. And that, I think, created the momentum, really, behind my effort and others' efforts to create a board of trustees for the University of Rhode Island that was specifically devoted to the University of Rhode Island and would pay close attention to all aspects of its mission, which includes research and service and economic development, as well as undergraduate education. Graduate education is obviously very important to URI as well. And then we wanted to take advantage of what is a characteristic of such governing boards, particularly for public and also for private institutions. And that is when you have a group of outstanding people who are helping actually run the institution, they become heavily invested in the institution. They can become leaders in fundraising, and they themselves, typically, certainly true of our current board, give substantially to the institution. And they also use their networks on behalf of the institution, their political, social, business connections. And they do that on behalf of a particular entity, in this particular case, the University of Rhode Island. So that was our thinking. A year ago or so now, a year and a half ago, I guess, actually, we began in earnest working with the General Assembly and with Governor Raimondo around this area. And frankly, I had raised it with Governor Raimondo practically in the first weeks after her original election. And she was quite supportive of the concept. But we finally took the initiative, and thanks to strong support inside the General Assembly, bills were filed in both the House and the Senate to create the board. And we have been delighted with the membership of the board. Of the 17 members, 13, I believe, are URI alumni. That's a very new situation for the University of Rhode Island. They're extremely distinguished URI alumni. Margot Cook, the chair, for example, Mike McNally, the vice chair, Mike Fascitelli, Tom Ryan, David Martirano. These are distinguished Rhode Islanders with great success. Former, we have a former lieutenant governor. We have former, business leaders. Arvin Sabatoni, a major labor leader, all sit on our board right now. And they have done a splendid job under challenging circumstances. It's not easy to be a new board when you can't meet.
Right.
How do you do it? You can't come together. You can't have a social dinner to get to know one another. You can't develop those relationships with one another that makes boards so effective. But they have done a magnificent job working around that. They're very cohesive, thoughtful people now. I think they function very effectively. We brought in some of the best advisors in the country to guide the construction of bylaws, guidelines, policies, procedures, committee structures that the board followed. Then we have a very, very strong governance process now for the university, and I'm very, very pleased with how it's working.
Outstanding names. I know so many of those leaders that you mentioned, and they are outstanding citizens in our community. So I don't see how you can go wrong with some of the names of the people you've mentioned that are on this board. I
agree completely, Karen. I mean, we could not be more pleased with the composition of the board.
Yes, very fortunate. And that's a tribute to you as well, and to the whole faculty and staff at URI, that they want to come on board and be a part of this community, the URI community. Now I'm going to go back to Kathy. And about 9 years ago, as I understand, the university established a Students First Fund in direct support of students experiencing a personal crisis. So now here comes COVID-19, which is the biggest crisis of our lifetime. Community has come together to support your students. So how have they supported your Students First Fund, and what impact has this support had on your students and on their families?
What a question, and certainly a question during a challenging time for so many of our students and their families. And I first want to just thank so many of you who are with us tonight who have supported our students. You've supported the Student First Fund. You've reached out to ask how you could be of assistance. Our faculty, staff, and our students have reached out to see how they can help each other. So I certainly want to share that over 330 people have donated to the Student First Fund since March 1st. And that money that we raised, over $75,000, went to immediate use. We have staff across the institution who've been mailing out gift cards to Stop and Shop and to Aldi's. We've assisted students in paying rent so that they would not experience, homelessness during this horrible pandemic. We've assisted students with technology. We have students at URI across the country. Institutions are facing food insecurity, homelessness, and technological insecurity. So the assistance of the Student First Fund, we have been able to leverage. In fact, just this summer alone, over $30,000 went just to help students with rent money so that they had a place to be safe during a pandemic. And this is just a reality that so many people are facing. And we know the socioeconomic crisis, the increasing unemployment that we're experiencing, that is impacting our students and family members. Many of them, were still struggling prior to this. So this is just, certainly exacerbated some of that. I know specifically during this situation, through the assistance of so many of you, we had students that didn't have Wi-Fi at home. Can you imagine when we pivoted in March? A student who didn't have Wi-Fi. So we had students that we were aware of that were actually going to the local public libraries that, while closed, had left their Wi-Fi signal on, and they were studying and doing their schoolwork in the parking lots. As soon as we were finding out about this, we were mailing hotspots to those students. We also know so many students had one laptop, and maybe they're and their younger siblings who are also in K through 12 were trying to share a laptop. Through the assistance of so many of you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, we were able to get laptops. We were mailing them out from Ramtech, our computer store on campus. We had loaners from the library. We were collecting computers from across campus to get them to our students. The Student First Fund can oftentimes be that last-ditch effort that we can do to keep a student in college, to keep them at URI, because we all know we need our graduates. This world needs our graduates. They need us leading. They need us performing. They need our minds and our big ideas and thinking. So everything we can do to keep students focused on their education, because when a student's hungry and they're starving, they can't learn.
No.
So we have been able to, through so many of you, I just simply can't thank you enough. The other thing I'll share is we partner with local farms. We've also partnered with our own students. You can donate your meal passes. So if you're not using your meal passes, you can simply donate a swipe. We have a request form on our website. The students can tell us if they need meals or if they'd like to donate meals. So we're teaching philanthropy very early on with our students of how to help each other. So the Student First Fund is critical to the success of our institution. I wish we didn't have it. I wish we didn't need it. But we do need it, and I thank you so much for your kind and generous donations to assist our students by donating to the Student First Fund. Thank you.
And just a quick question, Kathy. The students, do they know how to access this fund or get the information and when they are in trouble and need this help?
I hope they do.
Okay.
We have information available, whether it's our faculty and staff. The faculty may be the first line to know that a student's struggling. So our Students First Fund, we work so closely with the amazing team with Lil O'Rourke and the foundation, and John Garcia and Sarah Lovdell and Jackie Knoll. We work so closely with that team about it. We can get a student immediate assistance if they go to a faculty member, a staff member. We also have a food pantry on campus called Rhody Outpost. And even throughout the pandemic, we've been getting donations of food and making sure that that gets to our students in a timely manner. Again, keeping them on track for that education is our number one priority. But I hope if anyone has any other questions, please contact me directly about the Student First Fund or any member of the great staff in the foundation.
Well, as we continue along the line about student life and campus life, we had a question from one of our attendees. And they write, an important consideration in student recruitment and retention is the quality of student life in Kingston. What are the future plans and improvements to the key elements that improve that quality of life, such as the dining options, the student service, student union services, expansion of student fitness? I know we talked about some of this, recreational opportunities. Attendee is also interested in the future of the Kingston Emporium on campus.
What a great, thoughtful question with so many parts and pieces. You're right, student life, and I have no bias in this. Student life is important. The student affairs and the student services that we provide our students, it can be competitive out there from campus to campus. I think over the past several years, some campuses have unfortunately gotten into almost an arms race in terms of who had different services. Sometimes we'll joke about the lazy rivers. URI does not have a lazy river. We're not building a lazy river, but we want the best facilities and services that we can provide to our students. And you know what? COVID has really caused us to think and pause and reflect on what's amazingly important for our students. So one of the projects I'm so excited to share with you today is, we know many of you might remember health services. Do you remember where health services was? It's still there, and it's still the modular trailers. So we are dedicated to, in light of, certainly we were planning this prior to this national global health crisis that we're now facing, building a new health services to meet the needs of today's students. But better yet, we want to treat the whole student. So we are committed that we will be moving health services and counseling services together, because those services meet the needs of so many of our students. We want to treat the whole student at URI. We want the whole student to be successful. So moving health services and counseling services together in a new building, that's just priority number one for me. I know the president and others are dedicated to that service as well. We also have amazing fitness centers across campus. And in fact, if you go to the Campus Recreation website, our fitness coaches have been downloading virtual workouts that you can do from home. It's because we had to pivot back in March. So we know that students can work out in their rooms. In fact, there is an entire series about workouts you can do in your kitchen, using cans of soup and everything. So that's important for us to get the facilities back open again, in terms of the Fascitelli Fitness Center, the Mako Kini Tutel. We want to engage those students. My office at URI happens to be located in the Memorial Union. The Memorial Union has served our institution well, and it is tired. It is a building that has, stood the test of time. And we have to really reflect as a campus community, what do we want the union of the future to look like and to be like? It is the living room of the campus, but so isn't the library now, where there's no stacks on the ground floor and the books have all been moved upstairs, and there's a coffee shop on the ground floor now, and an AI lab and 3D printers. So we treat the whole campus now in terms of what does that look like in terms of space. But you're right, this is something that's first and foremost on all of our minds. What are those services and where do we provide them? Know too that we have fully embraced technology. So not only will classes be available, many of our classes online, we do telemedicine and telecounseling appointments. So students can access their health services if they're on study abroad. Students can access our doctors and our amazing team in the counseling center wherever they are in the world. And I think that's going to only continue to grow in terms of how we do virtual workouts to telemedicine appointments. Now, last, I'll talk a little bit about housing.
Right, because we did have a question about the residence hall. So
yeah,
I know President Julie had talked about that you're going to be limiting how many will be in a room and that sort of thing.
We have decreased density. We're now at just, I would say, about 60% of our occupancy. But last year, prior to all of this, we opened a brand new, beautiful state-of-the-art residence hall. Some of you will know the exact location of this. I had to learn it because I've only been at URI now about 4 years. I had to learn that it's where the dairy barn parking lot used to be. And I know that that's how people will certainly give sense. So right across the street from the Ryan Center and Meade Stadium is a beautiful 500-bed apartment building with a cafe bistro on the ground floor, classrooms that range in size from over 150 to meeting rooms of 7. These are fully furnished apartments with the bathrooms and kitchens. It's a beautiful building. President Dooley and I have been in the building and toured it. It's an absolutely beautiful building. We built this because we knew more and more of our students wanted to live on campus. They want to be on campus. We have activities on campus. There's so much going on campus. So this was going to be for juniors and seniors. And then the pandemic hit and we had to pivot. So not only did we decrease density, we have made decisions to prioritize the housing of our first year students, because all of the national research tells us the longer the students who start on campus have higher GPAs, they graduate faster. So we focused our housing on our first year students and our sophomores. I cannot wait to get to the other side of this, when we can get back. And then we have conversations we're doing all the time, President Dooley, myself, and senior leadership, about the future needs on campus, because we do have more need. I think that's something for us to continue to talk about as the university has grown. What do we want to do with our housing? Where do we put that? And what might that look like? Now, you also asked about the Emporium. The Emporium is located just adjacent to campus. And as many people know, I think some people assume that's part of URI because it's so close. It literally bleeds right into campus. But that is an area that is privately owned and operated, though many of our students and staff and others certainly frequent that. But we do have exciting plans we were thinking in front of that. And I'd certainly welcome President Dooley to share what might be some of those ideas we have as a university for that upper area, because it would be nice to have some different opportunities for our students to dine and shop close to campus. So I don't know if President Dooley wants to add anything to that.
I think you did a great job with that question, Kathy, as you generally do. The only thing I would add is we do have plans, and it's out in the public domain, so they're not secret plans by any means. The project has been slowed significantly by COVID-19, but we're hopeful we'll be able to pick it up soon. And that is to form a partnership with a private developer to develop a big chunk of the land on Upper College Road that's currently occupied by grass and a parking lot and a couple of buildings that need to come down in any event, and we can relocate the folks that are in those buildings into the center of campus where they rightfully should be. And in its place will be a hotel with conference facilities and full 24/7 dining facilities, a sports bar, and other amenities to serve the URI community. And all of the marketing analysis that's been done indicate that it's a very, very viable proposition. And frankly, just the university itself could hit the occupants, help it hit the occupancy targets that it needs to be profitable. So we're anxious to pick that project up again as soon as conditions permit. And we look forward to having that done. And that'll be an incredibly important part of, I think, the entrance to campus and the amenities on campus. And another thing that we're doing as part of that, which actually will begin in the coming year, is the complete rebuild of Upper College Road to make it a much more pedestrian and bike-friendly, safer introduction and thoroughway into the heart of campus. And that will begin, and then shortly after that, we're hoping that we'll be able to, with our private partner developer, begin work on the hotel complex on Upper College Road.
But how challenging is it when it's so uncertain? I mean, everything is just sitting there simmering on the stove, so to speak, right? You just can't move ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, it's quite understandable that developers will be concerned about obtaining the adequate financing under terms that they need in order to have a profitable outcome at the end. People are reluctant to begin major projects just because they don't know if they'll be able to hire all the labor that they need under the current conditions. So we're looking forward to this end of the pandemic for a host of reasons, and this just happens to be another one.
Well, that leads me to a question about your campaign to raise money, the campaign for URI. This is a very ambitious campaign, and I'd like for you to talk about it. I'm sure many of the attendees today know about it, but I'd like for you to explain it a little bit more.
Of course. we're very, very pleased with the progress that we've made. And I have to say, under Lil O'Rourke's leadership, the URI Foundation has become a major force for improving the status and trajectory of the University of Rhode Island. As you know, the URI Foundation and our alumni group merged to become the URI Foundation and Alumni Engagement. That was a critical step forward for the university to achieve that merger of two really important functions of the institution and bring them under a single umbrella with a single mission and focus of doing everything they can to encourage the development of the university and to raise funds for that. So as a result of that, we were able to put together the most ambitious campaign in URI's history. It has a stated public goal of 250 million. Lil always cringes every time I do this, so go ahead, Lil. But she knows, I know, and I'm never shy about sharing it, that my real goal for this campaign is 300 million. Mm-hmm. I think that's quite doable. And I think the enormous progress that we made, I cite as data in support of my position. And we've raised 175 million so far, and we still have a ways to go. And obviously, things have been displaced slightly by the pandemic. Obviously, we can't do the kinds of events. Our core fundraisers are not getting on airplanes or trains at nearly the same frequency that they once did. But we continue to make significant progress, even during the campaign, towards meeting the goals. And the goals are very important because they will support student access at the university. They will help improve the URI learning experience, help build transformative faculty leadership, and support many programs we have at the University of Rhode Island that are innovative and distinctive and really hallmarks of the institution. And finally, it will create funds for the university to take advantage of strategic opportunities, both short-term and long-term, to position the university and move it forward and support all the other goals. So this is a goal that has a campaign rather that has the right goals, the right priorities, a lot of momentum, a lot of enthusiasm. Some of the most prominent alumni and supporters of the University of Rhode Island have stepped forward in magnificent ways to support us already. We have great campaign leadership. Dick Harrington is the chair of the campaign. Al Varecchia heads up the URI Foundation board now. As I mentioned earlier, we have people like Tom Ryan, Mike Fascitelli, and Margot Cook on the board of trustees. So we think we're exceptionally well positioned for a very, very successful campaign that'll be transformative for the entire university. And that's our goal, and we're optimistic about it and enthusiastic about it. And we'll be rolling out all kinds of opportunities for folks over the coming months. One that we're working on right now is a campaign for scholarships. The university just took $2 million out of its reserve funds to make a temporary commitment to financial aid for needy students for all the reasons that Kathy Collins was mentioning. And the foundation stepped up and said, okay, that's a great start, but we're going to raise at least $1 million more to support that over the next few months. And I think that epitomizes what our foundation is today and the progress that we're able to make in this campaign.
But it is still, having stayed involved in the nonprofit world and helping raise money, it is still a great challenge to raise money these days.
It is, even when the markets are strong and the markets have largely recovered and even set new records since the onset of the pandemic. But when there's so much uncertainty and so many people worried about the future of their careers, their jobs, the availability of jobs into the future, worried about healthcare and the expenses associated with that, it is a very, very challenging environment in which to raise money. But I'm confident. I think there's a good reason to be confident that we'll see the other side of this during the course of the campaign, and people can emerge from that and recognize just how important it is to invest in higher education. Let's just say this. Everybody working on those vaccines, they graduated from college.
Yes.
In critical areas, and they're leading the charge to take this epidemic and end it for good with the appropriate kinds of vaccines. That's the power of higher education. And we need it now more than ever to deal with pandemics and epidemics and infectious disease. We need it to deal with climate change. We need it to deal with all the global issues that we face around human suffering and inequality, justice issues. So I would say to everyone, now is the best time of any time to give to higher education to prepare us to succeed in the future.
And I hope in the near future people can come, the potential contributors can visit the campus, because every time I go there, I am just so excited that what's going on, the new construction and the students and the faculty. And I fell in love with those kids from the Harrington School of Communications, absolutely fell in love with them. So full disclosure here, I am a big fan of President Dooley and have been for a long time. You made an announcement about a retirement. So what's down the road here for you?
I am going to retire, Karen. That is a given. At the end,
it isn't so.
June of 21 will be my last month at the University of Rhode Island. I timed this so that, one, I could continue to help maintain the momentum of the campaign, and two, so that there could be a really smooth transition to a new president. And then I took on the third job of trying to solve as many of the problems associated with COVID-19 in conjunction with my senior leadership team as possible, so the new president can come in and really get the university back on the incredible positive track it was on before the pandemic hit. And if we can accomplish those things, I'll feel very, very good about my time here at the University of Rhode Island. It's been truly an honor, as I said in the statement I gave to the campus, that I truly feel what Arthur Conan Doyle wrote into the mouths of Sherlock Holmes once, where the work is its own reward. Mm-hmm. And that's how I feel about working at the University of Rhode Island. It's incredibly rewarding to be here. It's been something I've loved doing, but it is time, I think, for new leadership, and it's time for me in particular to think about doing nothing for a while. And that's the totality of my plans, Karen. When I leave the University of Rhode Island, my plan is to do nothing.
Now, come on, you can't just do nothing. You must have something. I mean, is it fishing? I mean, a new hobby? What?
Absolutely. It includes all of those things. It includes spending time in the mountains. It spending time on the golf course. It means spending time reading. It means spending time with Lynn, most of all, taking Rhodey on long hikes to mountain peaks and alpine lakes in Montana, and then doing everything else I can think of to just enjoy life and share it with Lynn and share it with our kids who both live in Montana now. That's my plan. So I will be doing something.
Okay. Well, we'll all be checking on you to see how you are. Now, we're kind of wrapping up here, and we might have a few questions at the end. So I want to ask Kathy the message that you would like to share with the URI community as we work our way through this crazy time.
Well, certainly. And the first thing I'll share is a huge heartfelt just thank you to President Dooley for his leadership. He has done an unbelievable, remarkable job, and that's what gives me such incredible hope, is the strength of the senior leadership team at the University of Rhode Island that he and Provost DeHaze have built. I'm part of the team, but we are outstanding. How we have navigated this and pulled together and worked together with our decision making, with challenging each other, that I have such incredible hope. There are colleges and universities across the country who will not make it through this pandemic. Some research tells us as high as 20 to 25% of higher education will close. That is not URI. In fact, URI is in such a great position, thanks to the help of so many of you, in the leadership of President Dooley, in the leadership of Margot, our chair, and others who have stepped up. We will be one of the higher education leaders on the other side of this pandemic. And that gives me such incredible hope, goosebumps, great feelings in terms of what we will be able to do. And it's just incredible to be a part of this leadership community, the family that is URI, the relationships that are so strong and built every day on this campus, connections to our alumni, to our families and friends, to our students now and our future RAMs. It gives me such incredible hope that I just know the strength of this institution and the just amazing work we're going to do every day and continue to do into the future. I feel incredibly hopeful.
Good. That's wonderful. President Dooley, your thoughts?
Wow. It's hard to follow Kathy up when she makes a speech like that. Let me tell you, she's impassioned about URI, as you can obviously tell, and she's a great leader in her own right. I think the university is extraordinarily well positioned for success, and frankly, that has much more to do with the faculty, the staff, and the students than it does me. It's a great institution. The students they impress me every single time I have a chance to meet with them, which is very frequently, and to just learn about what they're doing and how much they accomplish in the time at URI. We have an amazing faculty now who've worked so hard through this pandemic and have achieved so much during the midst of all of this, that I think they will be the foundation and the nucleus for greatness for URI for a long time to come, because a lot of them, in fact, now I think a majority of them have been hired since 2010. So we have a relatively young faculty. They're full of energy, passion, ideas. They're extraordinarily well trained they came from the best institutions in the world, and they are passionate about their scholarship, and they're passionate about their students and education and helping students succeed. So I think URI has an incredibly bright future ahead of it. And I would have been proud to be a part of it and to benefit and have the joy of working with the people here. And frankly, working with the larger URI community of alumni and supporters, individuals in state government, our senators, our congressional delegation, everyone has really contributed to making URI what it is today and building it to have the potential for an even bigger, better, brighter future. And completing the campaign will be an incredibly important part of that. The next president will have the honor of completing that campaign and bringing it in at 300 million plus. And I look forward to congratulating her or him when that is done.
You keep throwing in that 300 there. I can't see Lil's face, but I can imagine. I did have one other question, which we didn't really talk too much about, but what is the future of sporting events right now, as you know?
Very interesting question and complex one. For URI and the conferences that we work with, I'm proud to say we took a leadership position relatively early on. Both the Atlantic 10 Conference, which has all sports but football, and the Colonial Athletic Association, which is our football conference, made the decision a month ago that we would postpone fall sports to spring.
Okay.
So we'll be playing football in the spring, we hope. We'll be playing men and women's soccer, swimming, and all of those sports will be now done in the spring. And we look forward to that. We can't say with certainty what the schedules will look like. That'll depend a lot on the status of things in the spring. We're really remaining hopeful that we'll be able to do the winter sports, and particularly men and women's basketball, and that we'll be able to do that at least in front of some fans. But a lot depends on how our country as a whole manages its way through this pandemic, and people taking seriously the work and guidelines of scientists and healthcare professionals and the guidance of the CDC about how to bring this pandemic under control. Everything is subject to that. The virus is in charge. And until we face that fact and behave accordingly, all of our sporting events and many other things that we would love to do are going to be in jeopardy. Now, I remain optimistic because I think we're going to have a vaccine in 2021, and multiple vaccines, which will be even better. And I think that will finally, put an end to this pandemic in most parts of the world, and specifically in the United States. But there's a long road until we get there.
Yes, there is. I want to thank you. This is so fascinating. I love catching up on what's going on at URI. I see John has joined us, and John's been monitoring. And John, wondering if you had any questions that came from that might have come from some of our attendees.
Well, thank you, Karen, and thank you to you, Dr. Collins, and President Dooley. This has been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed it. There are a couple of questions here. One specifically, and President Dooley, you talked about the faculty and how important they are. How are they doing with handling the switch over to remote learning? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have to say I was really impressed. I mean, when we switched over in March, we had a lot of faculty that had never taught in an online environment before, had never taught remotely. They had about 2 weeks to put together not only their own skills, but to transfer all their course materials, or at least get it started, so they could teach in an online environment. Everybody was able to do that. It wasn't as good as we can do it now, because the other thing our faculty have done is they took the challenge very seriously, and hundreds of them, literally hundreds of them, have taken professional development opportunities of all kinds to improve their skills at online education, to prepare for, I think, the growing importance of that modality in teaching into the future. We believe in that. We believe that online education will be an important part of what the university does. We also believe that residential education, first face-to-face, person-to-person, will continue to be central to what the university does. Both of those things going into the future. And our faculty are now really prepared for that world in a way that is almost astonishing in terms of how quickly they were able to do it. And it's true, we've made lots of investments, millions of dollars in the technologies and programs and software and so forth that will assist them in that. So it's been a collaborative effort, but they have really risen to the occasion, and I have nothing but admiration for their work and quality.
Well, thank you. Another question here, I think maybe best for Kathy, but I'll let you and President Dooley decide, but talks about racial justice being an important current event in our country. And what are some of the work that we're doing around diversity and inclusion?
Well, we should probably both speak to that, because Kathy's so intimately involved in student life, and that's really one of the critical areas that we want to emphasize in this. You know, it was one of our 4 transformational goals, which we developed shortly after I became president here at the University of Rhode Island, and it's foundational to all of our other goals, is to build a community that's diverse and devoted to equity. And we mean that very seriously. And we've been working on that consistently and I think successfully in many fronts ever since. I think current events in the United States have emphasized more than ever how critically important that is. And just as an aside, I would say that's one of the reasons that residential higher education is so important. It's one of the very few venues left in the world where you can bring people together from all kinds of backgrounds, all races, ethnicities, religions, political viewpoints, origins, who may not have a whole lot in common except their humanity. And at a place like the University of Rhode Island, they can discover that. They can figure out how to work with people, how to respect one another, how to welcome people without necessarily agreeing with them and everything, to a community. That's where students can learn these skills. And we think those skills are more important than ever in a globally connected, hyper-connected world that they're going to live in, that we live in now. So I think it's an educational imperative, and I think it's a social justice imperative for our students and the faculty, staff, and the entire UR community, that we take steps now. We're not really just content to look at individuals and say, an individual isn't racist, or this isn't a racist thing, but to actively combat it, to accept the fact that the United States, 400 years later, still struggles with structural systemic racism in the country. we have not solved the problems. The election of Barack Obama was not the end of the story of racial justice in America. And we need to double down, triple down, and re-energize ourselves to working for that, to actively combating racism as it exists in this country and elsewhere in the world, and helping and empowering the University of Rhode Island and the community that makes up the University of Rhode Island to be actively involved in making the changes that need to be changed to finally rid the United States of America of the scourge of its racist past and history. We can't ignore that slaves were introduced into America in 1619. And it took the Civil War to end it, but that did not solve the problems. Many of those problems still exist. And it's time that we all got actively involved in solving those problems.
Well said.
Yes, certainly everything President Dooley said, and recognizing we are currently fighting multiple pandemics. Certainly one is a global health pandemic, but our country fighting for 400 years, but not enough of us fighting just the racial injustices that have impacted so many. So at the institution, current things that we're doing right now to really focus on diversity, equity, and inclusive excellence is immediately this summer. Training that has been happening across campus to really teach, inform, help change, lead everything in terms of our pedagogy, in terms of what's the experience for students, our Black and brown students and other students in classrooms, to also really truly looking at the diversity of our campus. We're an incredibly diverse place. Does everyone feel welcome? Do they feel welcome all the time? Looking and examining our systems that exist in terms of what are the systemic issues that people are experiencing on campus. Our very campus is built on the land of the Narragansetts and the first peoples of who lived in this area. How do we recognize and acknowledge so much of the history and the richness of this land that we're on and the experiences of the people, how horrific they may be on that very land? I'm so excited that this year our Student Senate is the most diverse. Our first female Black president of Student Senate, Austin Ramsey, rock star. Wait till you meet her. I can't wait to have you all on campus to meet her. Her leadership, her vision for our student experience. And lastly, I'll share just the commitment you have across the institution that has been there and is now amplified to create opportunities and pathways for success for our students, faculty, and staff who are from those amazing Black and brown communities, who are from diverse in terms of their ability and ableism, to just find ways for women to find their voice and create leadership opportunities and learning opportunities across the institution. We are committed, and we ask each and every one of you and our community members, hold us accountable in terms of doing that work. Great question. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. And I guess we can end on one last question for President Dooley. As you know, our attendees are all Oliver Watson Society members. Can you talk to the importance of their commitment to the university from your perspective?
Well, there are a few things as important as the kind of support that comes from individuals who in essence pledge a significant part of their wealth to the future of the university. And that sets a standard that I think is important to everyone and sets an example for everyone. So we are very, very grateful to all of the members of the Oliver Watson Society for your commitment to the university, for thinking about the university as you think about your life's plans, for making those commitments and pledges to the institution. That's a foundation of the future. To know that those resources will be available to the institution at some future point is an incredibly important component to building the university of the future. And yes, gifts that come in that we can spend right away really matter, but so do those gifts that come in and set the foundation for future initiatives and future progress of the institution. So I just commend and thank all of you who are members of the Oliver Watson Society for your support of the university. Believe me, it matters. And one of the things I can say about the University of Rhode Island is that you get a lot of bang for your buck. You know, a gift to the University of Rhode Island has a huge impact at any time that it arrives and is ready to be utilized by the institution. And we're a very frugal place. We run with great efficiency. We have really clear priorities as articulated in the campaign, and that's where your money goes to work. And it makes a difference, a huge difference, and much more so than it would at many other institutions where you might think about giving your money. And I think that's just a fact. So thank you for your continued support, for your participation, because your support is not just monetary. It's your engagement. It's engaging with our students. I know many members of the society have created internships for students, hosted students in their businesses, worked with students in a whole variety of ways. And let me tell you, that's immensely valuable as well, and something that we and they, the students, truly treasure.
And very rewarding, I might add, very rewarding to do that.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. I look to John.
Yes. Karen, Dr. Collins, and President Dooley, thank you so much for joining us. We certainly appreciate, and we're excited about this new series. As I mentioned earlier, we will have another conversation with URI leadership in the spring. So be on the lookout for an email from our office, and tell your friends. You know, we have a great audience today, but the more the merrier. So thank you all for joining us today, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Karen.